When getting intimate, my boyfriend liked to take off my glasses, saying he loved how my peach blossom eyes squinted ever so slightly, until one day, I overheard him saying to someone else, "She can't see clearly, all those tricks, she can't stop them in time, so she just silently takes it." TSK. Start to finish, 0 bathroom breaks. Someone laughed and asked how he'd managed to win me over. Luis smiled mysteriously. Conservative girls are all the same, they only give themselves to the man they believe truly intends to marry them. So I paid full price for an old, crappy apartment and put it under Julia's name. She was so moved, thought I'd bet my whole future on her. How could she bring herself to say no? Chapter 1. To save money for the wedding, I took a part-time job at my best friend's company as a wedding planner. That day, I went to a hotel to meet a high-profile client. While waiting at the lounge bar, I overheard a man teasing, "Young Master Luis, still haven't ended your Cinderella charity project? You and Selena are already set to marry. The date's getting close." I instinctively turned my head slightly. Luis, the name was the same as my boyfriend's, but my Luis was just a sales rep at a medical equipment company. The next moment, a voice I knew all too well responded, "What's the rush? There's still a month." I'm kind of reluctant to let go of Julia. In that instant, it felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over my head. My whole body froze. "Julia, that's me." The other guy scoffed. "You actually fell for her?" Luis took a lazy sip of his drink. "Not exactly. It's just, our bodies are a good match. Besides," he lowered his voice, "she's nearsighted, can't see clearly, so when things get creative, she doesn't stop me in time, just quietly takes it." TSK. Start to finish. Not a single boring moment. The other man burst out laughing. "That girl used to get chased by rich guys making grand gestures, Maseratis, Hermes bags, and she never budged. Word is, she's super pure. How did you hit jackpot on your first try?" Luis grinned. "Conservative girls only give themselves to men who convince them they're sincere. I paid cash for a beat-up old apartment and put it under Julia's name. She was so touched, thought I gave her my life savings. How could she possibly say no? It's like leading a donkey, you've got to dangle the right carrot. A car or a designer bag doesn't prove you want to marry her, but paying full price for a house? That's the carrot." Luis sounded a bit impatient now. He turned to the butler. "Where's Selena? Wasn't she supposed to be here? We agreed to meet the wedding planner together." I froze. The client I was supposed to meet today was probably Selena. Before I could react, Luis had already thrown his coat over his shoulder. "I'm busy. I'm leaving. Tell Selena to handle it however she wants. I'll go with whatever she decides." Then he told the driver, "Take me to that trendy cake shop on the south side." One of his friends teased, "No time to help your fiancé with wedding plans, but plenty of time to detour for cheap cakes for your Cinderella." Luis kicked him. "Screw off." Then he sighed. "Honestly, if she weren't so nearsighted, I'd consider fighting for her even if my parents disapproved. It's a shame." Chapter 2. I sat frozen in place. My mind flashed back to that morning, Luis kissing my forehead as I woke up. At the time, I blushed and pushed him away. "What you did last night, I didn't like it." Luis had been brushing my hair gently. "It won't happen again." "That's what you said last time too." Luis didn't get upset. He chuckled. "So what do we do then? Want me to do it your way next time?" I blushed so hard even my neck turned red. "Shut up. Weren't you supposed to be working overtime? Get going." Luis looked at his watch dramatically. I really should go. If I miss another day, I won't get this month's attendance bonus. I need to save up to buy you a new house, one with giant floor-to-ceiling windows and sunlight from every direction." I told him for the 100th time that I loved our current place. It was old, sure, but it felt like home. "You didn't have to put the house under my name. You know, you paid for it. After all, your parents probably wouldn't be happy if they knew." Luis straightened his collar, then leaned in for his usual goodbye kiss. "Of course I had to. If I'm ever not around, at least you'll still have somewhere to call home." I scolded him for saying something so ominous, but I never imagined he'd be right. The prince always returns to his castle to marry the princess. And Cinderella? She's still working side jobs like a fool, saving up to build a decent home. Chapter 3. A cool, graceful female voice snapped me out of my thoughts. Sorry, I'm late. I'm Selena. The woman standing in front of me wore a crisp white pantsuit. Her long, silky hair draped gently over her shoulders. Her eyes were soft, and there was an apologetic smile on her face. Selena took out a beautifully wrapped perfume box from her bag and handed it to me. A small gift. For waiting so patiently. I glanced down. It was a luxury brand. Just 30 milliliters cost over 3,000 yuan. I was about to refuse when Selena's best friend walked in. Luis left already. He said the wedding budget's 3 million, more if needed. Said to let you do it however you like. Can't even spare time to meet the wedding planner with you? How much could he possibly love you? Selena pressed the perfume into my hands and replied casually. Love or not, it's just a marriage alliance. I don't care what he does before marriage, as long as he settles down after. It's fine. Worst case, even if he cheats, I'll just pop champagne to celebrate. All I'll lose is a rotten cucumber. And his family's at least giving me 30% of the profits. That's a win. I had originally wanted to tell her the truth. Now, I swallowed the words back. So this is the world of the wealthy? Love doesn't matter. Only profits last forever. Selena waved over a waiter and ordered a few light dishes and desserts before finally turning her attention back to me. Julia, right? I've seen your work, very artistic. Just my style. Here's the file with my basic wedding requirements. Take a look. Her instructions were clear. The wedding would be held at the Bulgari Hotel. The entire venue would be reserved. The banquet? 23,888 yuan per table, 50 tables in total. The theme? Calla lilies. I reviewed the plan carefully and suggested, if we start decorating a week in advance, the hotel charges quite a fee. It's really not necessary. 3 days should be enough. My team can work fast to stay on schedule. From a cost-effectiveness point of view, I looked up and saw Selena smiling at me. And suddenly, I realized, words like cost-effectiveness don't exist in her world. I lowered my voice. That was out of line. A week in advance it is. Just then, the waiter came with the food. I instinctively moved my things onto the chair to avoid taking up table space. But to my surprise, Selena pushed the plate toward me. Go ahead, eat. I looked up at her, a little taken aback. She nodded slightly, motioning for me not to be shy. You look really pale. Low blood sugar? Eat something first. Chapter 4. After finishing the meeting with Selena, I walked alone down a sunlit street lined with plane trees and dialed Nicole's number. The emotions I'd been bottling up finally broke free. With a choked voice, I said, Luis is going to marry someone else. Nicole seemed busy and replied casually, then dump him. The next one will treat you better. But Luis and we've slept together. By the end, my voice was barely above a whisper. Nicole let out a dramatic sigh. So what? What is this? Ancient times? After hearing the whole story, she went silent for a while. Then, cautiously, she said, Julia, how about we finish this project first? I'm not saying we have to take the job. I just hate how unfair this is. Why should you be made a fool of? Miss Selena clearly said, if she's satisfied with the wedding outcome, she'll give you a bonus of 300,000 yuan on top of the regular planning fee. After deducting company expenses, all the profit goes to you. Don't be stupid, Julia. You need more than just love, you need bread too. In the end, I agreed to Nicole's offer. Luis, I'll plan you a wedding unlike any the world has ever seen. Chapter 5. That evening, when I got home, Luis was in the kitchen making soup. When he saw me, he greeted me cheerfully. Baby, the supermarket had a sale on black pork ribs, 30% off. I bought some to make you soup. Go rest. It'll be ready soon. I couldn't help curling my lip into a mocking smile. How could someone be this two-faced? The man throwing a 3 million yuan wedding buys discounted ribs? Luis carefully brought out the soup. Drink it while it's hot. I took a spoonful with no real interest. Too salty, and it smells gamey. Luis froze. Usually, whenever he cooked, I would nag him for tiring himself out after work and still cooking for me, and then I'd eat every last bite. I had never once said it didn't taste good. This was the first time. Luis quietly took the bowl away. Then don't drink it. What would you like instead? I'll order takeout. I'm not hungry. You eat. He looked at me carefully. Bad day? I lowered my gaze. Just tired. Luis immediately started massaging my shoulders. Why is your company making you work weekends too? Next time. Just don't go. He had no idea I was working part-time as a wedding planner. As he kept rubbing, his hands started to wander lower. I pressed his hand away and handed him a medical report. The doctor says I have a ruptured corpus luteum. I can't do anything for at least a month. It was a fake diagnosis. Of course. I just didn't want to sleep with him as a breakup bonus. Part of me even hoped it would push him to show his cards early, to end this farce of a relationship. But Luis just frowned and said, "You're actually hurt? I'm so sorry. Don't worry, I'll take good care of you." Me? Wait, this wasn't the reaction I expected. Chapter 6. Luis actually started taking care of me, seriously. He looked up all the precautions online, reminded me to take my meds and rest on time every day, and even took over all the housework. He even offered to go with me to the hospital for a follow-up. I turned him down, saying I was too shy. Are you kidding? That'd blow my cover. Meanwhile, the preparations for Selena's wedding were moving forward step by step. She was very pleased with my design proposal. "Miss Julia, your plan is even more stunning than I expected." I simply smiled in silence. Some of the creative details I used were from my own private collection. Originally, I'd planned to use them for my wedding with Luis. But since that's no longer happening, I had no hesitation dumping all of it into this so-called wedding of the century. Selena's best friend was full of admiration and a little indignation. "Luis is too much. He's really acting like some hands-off boss. He hasn't shown his face even once." Selena didn't seem to care. "He's a man. They hate wasting time on little things. Let him be." But out of nowhere, I suddenly thought of how excited Luis had been when we first bought the apartment. Every weekend, we went to furniture markets together, from wallpaper and floor tiles to lamps and tissue boxes. We picked out everything by hand, together. At the time, I really thought I'd found a treasure of a man. Now that I think about it, it was nothing more than a rich boy playing a game of pretend husband. Chapter 7. 7 days until the wedding, setup team enters the venue. 6 days until the wedding, the host arrives for the first time. It's a well-known TV personality, often seen on national broadcasts. I heard his family and Selena's are longtime family friends. He came specifically to host this wedding. I listened to a run-through of the speech, truly excellent. Not overly sentimental, yet warm and sincere. 5 days until the wedding, I personally built a rainbow in the center of the hall. 10,000 meters of hand-dyed silk threads custom-made from Belgium. In the 8-meter-high space of the chapel, each strand was installed on-site by hand. From color selection to gradient transitions, I didn't leave anything to chance. It took 2 full days and nights to complete. A light that looked more like a rainbow than an actual one poured down from the skylight, painting the entire hall in dazzling hues. Selena stood in awe for a long time, her eyes glistening slightly. "What's this design called?" I was silent for a moment before replying softly. "When someone is like a rainbow, you only know they exist when you meet them." Selena gave a faint smile and turned to me. "On the wedding day, I want to throw the bouquet to you." I was just about to politely decline when Luis's voice came from afar. "This rainbow is amazing. Who made it?" Selena turned toward him. "You had time to come today?" Luis casually took out his phone, snapped a photo of the rainbow, gave a half-hearted compliment, then immediately lowered his head to start typing. A moment later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Luis, along with a photo. "Baby, check out the company's event setup. Isn't it pretty?" At the same time, I saw Luis frown and glance toward the partition. "Someone behind there?" Chapter 8. Selena answered with a smile. "She's our wedding planner. That rainbow was her creation. Want me to introduce you?" Luis kept staring at the partition, stepping closer with each stride. Selena looked at him, puzzled. The next second, he yanked it open. No one was there. Nicole quickly stepped in. "If you need anything, you can talk to me directly. I'm the owner of the wedding planning company." The planner had to leave early. Luis snapped out of it. "Nothing. I just remembered I have another appointment. I'll head out." With that, he turned and left in long, hurried strides. Once he was gone, Nicole spoke into her phone. "He's gone. Thanks, I said sincerely. That night, Luis returned home. As soon as he stepped in, he came over to me. I brought you a gift. He tied a rainbow-colored bracelet around my wrist. While tying it, Luis watched my expression closely. I stayed composed. It's pretty. Luis examined my face carefully. Baby, is there anything you want to say to me? I looked down for a moment, then smiled and raised my eyebrows. Why? Am I supposed to thank you for a bracelet? Seeing my reaction was normal, Luis visibly relaxed. This isn't just any bracelet. You know that saying? When someone is like a rainbow, you only know they exist once you meet them. I pushed him away. Ugh, so cheesy. Luis laughed and held my hand again. Julia, I will marry you. Give me 3 more years, okay? I'm working hard for us. I didn't respond. For some reason, I suddenly recalled a hypnosis session from long ago. At the end of the session, the hypnotist had whispered, I'll now count backwards from 5 to 0. With each count, you'll feel more awake. When I reach 1, you'll be able to open your eyes. At 0, you'll be fully awake, feeling better than ever before. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, 0. This wedding countdown, to me, it was simply the prelude to waking up. Chapter 9. The day before the wedding, Luis told me, calm and collected, that he had to go on a business trip for a few days. His eyes were soft and tender. When I come back, I have something important to tell you. I hid the mockery in my gaze. Okay, I'll look forward to it. On the morning of the wedding day, Nicole came to pick me up. You're really going to the venue? You're not planning to crash the wedding, right? While checking over the event rundown, coordinating with the makeup artist, lighting crew, and sound engineer, I replied casually amidst the chaos. What are you thinking? This is just my job. I'm the wedding planner. I know the entire process better than anyone. If I don't go, who's going to run the show? Nicole took my hand. Doesn't it hurt? I thought for a moment. It used to, but during those 30 full days of preparation, the hardest part had long since been buried in the chaos. It was only when I stepped into the game myself that I realized I was never truly a player in it. Luis, I can accept that I loved the wrong person, but I can't accept being treated like a fool. So now, it's time to end this. Chapter 10. The wedding turned out even more perfect than expected. Calla lilies filled the entire hall. The crystal decorations were layered just right, neither plain nor overdone. Guests were full of praise. This is the most stunning wedding I've ever attended. I don't know which company handled this, but I want the same for my own wedding. That rainbow was incredible. At first glance, it looked completely real. Nicole handed out so many business cards her hands started to cramp. She added tons of potential clients on WeChat and was practically grinning from ear to ear. Luis, the groom, wore a perfectly controlled smile the entire time. Standing beside Selena, they truly looked like a match made in heaven, equal in status and looks. During the thank you segment, Selena stood on stage and waved to me. For this wedding, I want to give special thanks to our planner, Julia. If every girl dreams of a perfect wedding growing up, then she's the one who made mine come true. I blinked in surprise. This wasn't part of the planned script. Before I could react, the spotlight hit me. In that instant, Luis's face turned ghostly pale. He tried to stop Selena from handing me the microphone and whispered urgently in a voice only I could hear. Julia, don't make a scene. This isn't your place. I promised I'd marry you. Can't you wait just 3 years? I looked at Luis closely. His whole face had gone white. Sweat dotted his forehead, ruining his makeup. I smiled. So he still thought I came to ruin the wedding. As if fighting for this prize was the most obvious thing I'd do. I ignored him and calmly accepted the mic from Selena. I also want to thank Miss Selena for trusting me to plan such an important day. And here, I sincerely wish the couple all the best. May you always support each other, roam the world hand in hand, cherish the present, and grow old together. Only when I handed the microphone back to Selena did Luis finally exhale and loosen his shoulders. He looked like someone who'd just been pulled out of a river, dripping and dazed. Many guests had noticed something was off. They whispered among themselves, "What's wrong with the groom? He looks really off." You don't think he's got some health issue, do you? Chapter 11. After the ceremony, Luis cornered me backstage. He yanked me into an empty room, nearly screaming, "Who gave you permission to do that? If Selena finds out, the cooperation between our families is over. Do you even understand how much damage you've caused?" It was the first time Luis had ever raised his voice at me. Gone was the gentle, attentive man I once knew. I looked up at him like I was seeing a stranger. Luis paused, clearly realizing his outburst. He slumped into a chair, drained. "Julia." I didn't mean to yell, but you should have talked to me first. I laughed coldly. Do you even hear yourself? I catch you cheating, and I'm supposed to talk it through with you? Luis, we're done. Luis reached out, trying to pull me back, but I sidestepped. I told you I'd marry you. Why don't you believe me? I already have a plan. Luis's plan was for me to obediently be his caged canary for 3 more years. In that time, he'd secretly drug Selena to make sure she never got pregnant. Meanwhile, he'd accelerate the partnership between their families to maximize profit. 3 years later, he'd give me a child. By then, my parents will resent Selena for not giving them a grandchild. Then you show up with the kid, demand status for you and the child. I'm sure they'll give in for the sake of their grandson. That's when I'll divorce Selena, and you and I can finally be together, for good. I stared at him, stunned. That's your brilliant plan for me? Luis nodded, a little regretfully. The biggest downside is I won't be able to see you as often as before, but you'll have to endure it. I raised my hand and slapped him, clean, loud, and sharp. Scumbag. In your plan, my dignity, my personhood, another woman's health, none of it matters. Does it? And what then? Am I supposed to thank you for it? Luis clearly hadn't expected me to hit him. He sat there in a daze, then leaned back, eyeing me like some superior being. Julia, calm down. Realistically, isn't this your only chance to break out of your class? Endure once, and you'll have a lifetime of luxury. Isn't it worth it? I let out a dry laugh. Do you love me? Luis softened a bit. Of course I do. I looked straight into his eyes. Then here's my plan for you. Cut ties with your family. Be with me. From now on, we fight for our future together. Luis frowned. Don't say things you don't mean. You know I can't do that. I let out a quiet laugh. If you can't give up your rich boy identity, don't pretend this is some once-in-a-lifetime love story. Maybe Luis did love me, but he loved himself more, and that's normal, because now, so do I. Before walking away, I left him with one last line. Young master, if you want everything, you'll end up with nothing. Just as I reached out to open the door, Luis was quicker. He locked it first. The next second, his familiar scent pressed in on me. He pinned me against the wall. He rubbed the bridge of his nose along my cheek. Don't be like this. His hand began to wander downward, like every time before. I tilted my head up sweetly, and just as he let his guard down, I slammed my knee hard between his legs. Luis let out a pained grunt, then roared in anger. Julia, don't you dare push it too far. He raised his hand to grab me, but just then, Selena's voice came from outside the door. Luis, are you in there? It's time for the toasts. Luis immediately stiffened in panic. I slipped into the dressing room. Only after I heard his limping steps follow Selena away did I come out. Then, my eyes widened. On the table lay a bouquet of calla lilies, still wet with dew. The bride's bouquet. Chapter 12. After the wedding ceremony ended, I left early. Nicole could handle the rest of the work. I had no desire to run into Luis again. I rushed home and packed up all of Luis's belongings, then tossed them straight into the trash bin downstairs. I packed up my own things and had them delivered to Nicole's place via courier. I took one last look around the now empty home. The warm decor was still there, but that original feeling was long gone. I called a real estate agent and listed the apartment for sale. Then, I took off the rainbow-colored bracelet from my wrist and let it fall to the floor without hesitation. Almost at the same moment, Luis messaged me. Julia, what I said earlier still counts. If you regret this, just send me that emoji, okay? He meant the little cat sticker. a cartoon kitten staring stubbornly at the screen, with the caption, "Do you want reason? Or do you want me?" Whenever we fought, and I didn't want to admit I was wrong, I'd send him that. Luis would always give in. "I want you. I want you, my little goddess." It worked every time. But this time, I deleted the sticker. Another message came from Luis. "For the next 3 years, I'll give you everything, except the title. 3 years later, I'll even give you my life." I blocked him without hesitation. Luis always believed Selena was his responsibility, and I was his love. He thought love and responsibility could be separated. But what he didn't understand is, in the end, love runs on conscience. Chapter 13. That night, right on schedule, Selena transferred 300,000 yuan to my account, a thank you for her satisfaction with the wedding. At the same time, Nicole calculated the full cost, payouts, and bonuses from the entire event. She wired all remaining profit to me. All told, my account now had 158 million. A few days later, the real estate agent called. Someone wanted to view the apartment, but there was a man sitting outside the unit, refusing to let them in. The agent was speechless. The guy's holding some rainbow bracelet, just sitting there saying no one can go inside. Keeps insisting it's his home. And the way he looks at people? Yikes. Like a serial killer. At that moment, I was in the airport lounge, surrounded by client documents, hearing the agent rant. I responded calmly, "If he doesn't leave, call the police." Later, the agent updated me. They did call the police. Under police persuasion, the man left, completely dazed and defeated. Nicole asked me, "You really don't care anymore?" I thought for a second, then answered seriously, "I guess I do still care, a little." Just as she was about to go berserk and smack me, I finished my sentence. "What if he ruins my property value?" Nicole stopped midair. "That won't happen. The place is a school district property now. Prices are soaring." Luis might be garbage as a person, but he had a sharp eye for real estate. That old, rundown flat ended up selling for 378 million yuan, adding another nice bump to my bank account. Nicole said I traded love for fortune and career blessings, sacrificed a prince, gained a portfolio. I thought for a moment, then nodded firmly. Then I hope the other side goes bankrupt in return. Chapter 14. 3 years flew by, and I found myself back in the city once again. To be honest, I hadn't planned on returning, but a client wanted to host their wedding in City A. They were extremely sincere, willing to wait for my availability, and I couldn't turn them down. Even though I had mentally prepared to run into Luis again, I hadn't expected it to happen this soon. I looked speechlessly at Luis, who was pretending to coincidentally bump into me in the hotel lobby. His cheeks were flushed, but he stubbornly refused to move aside. Luis's eyes fell on mine. "You've gotten even more beautiful," I replied, pointedly. I had LASIK. No need for glasses anymore. Luis still didn't know I had overheard that conversation with his friend years ago. He just nodded. "Your eyes are beautiful. They should be seen." I nodded but said nothing. The air between us grew awkward. Luis tried again. "I heard you've become a freelance wedding planner. Doing really well. In these 3 years, I'd grown step by step. I quit my job and became a full-time wedding planner. Most of my work was still in collaboration with Nicole, but I also took on private clients. Nicole didn't mind, she supported me fully. Now, I was an accomplished, independent wedding designer. And yes, my rates weren't cheap. Luis seemed to find his stride and began venting his frustrations from the past few years. He complained that Selena kept suppressing him. What was supposed to be a mutually beneficial partnership between families ended up benefiting Selena's family the most. And Selena was always emotionally distant with him. "I cooked for her once," he said. And after a few bites she told me, "Let professionals do professional work." Told me not to compete with the chef. Said his food was better anyway. "You used to." Before he could finish, I cut him off. "I used to fake it. It actually tasted bad. And I'm not interested in hearing any of this." If Luis could complain to me about Selena, he could just as easily complain to Selena about me. I could already picture him whining to her about how greedy and ungrateful I was. Luis fell silent for a long time before saying, "Selena asked for a divorce. You know, I don't think she ever loved me. Sometimes I tried to be good to her, but she'd just frown and say I didn't need to. I was getting annoyed. And? Young master, if love is the hardest thing you've ever suffered through, then honestly, I can't sympathize with you. After all, most people in this world are still struggling for just a few coins to survive. Even though I no longer lacked money, I couldn't afford to stop. Because unlike Luis, I had no wealthy family to fall back on. Just as I stood up to leave, Luis tried to grab me, but someone stepped in between us. Hey, don't be rude to a lady. Chapter 15. At some point, Ethan had stepped in front of me and casually handed me a notebook. Miss, you dropped this. Luis reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Who is he? Ethan and I spoke at the same time. Me, a client. Ethan, boyfriend. We turned and looked at each other. I shot him a glare. Ethan gave me a pitiful look. Finally, I gave in. Fine, I muttered. Bed buddy. Ethan stared at me, stunned. That's not what you said last night. I gritted my teeth. We were all drunk. It was consensual. Why are you acting like I owe you now? Ethan pouted and relented. He looked at Luis and nodded. Okay, bed buddy it is. Luis looked at me, completely in shock. You've changed so much. I raised an eyebrow. Turned you off? Luis grinned. Even hotter now. And then Ethan punched him right in the face, repeatedly. I looked to the heavens in disbelief. What even is this mess? Chapter 16. Luis immediately called the police, swearing he'd get Ethan arrested. But then his parents showed up and stopped him. Sorry, officer, said his dad. Just a misunderstanding, just kids messing around. The cop nodded. Yeah, one's 23, the other's 28. Definitely still kids. Just give them a beating at home and call it a day. Luis was still fuming until his dad slapped him across the face. Yesterday the company just received Ethan's family's investment contract. So what if the young master here gave you a couple punches? His mom, though clearly upset, still made Luis apologize to Ethan. Luis looked absolutely unwilling, but Ethan didn't let up. Oh please, that kind of apology? Who would dare accept it? You look like you're saying here's your apology, now kneel and listen. Luis's mom was sharp. She turned to me with a smile. You must be Miss Julia? I've always wanted to meet you. Never had the chance. Such a lovely girl, beautiful and capable too. I couldn't exactly stay angry when greeted so politely. Besides, technically it was Ethan who threw the first punch. I didn't want him to get into trouble because of me, so I signaled that we'd let it go. Finally, we got rid of all these VIPs, but as soon as I turned around, I saw a familiar figure. Selena walked up gracefully. Drink with me? Chapter 17. Selena and I sat down in the executive lounge. After a long silence, we spoke at the same time. I'm sorry. Thank you. Then we both laughed. I'm thanking you for organizing my wedding, and I'm apologizing for not telling you about Luis and me from the start. Selena waved it off. You were worried you wouldn't get paid. I get it. Everyone's chasing profit. You and I aren't exceptions. I couldn't help but ask. I heard you filed for divorce? Selena nodded. I've already gotten what I came for. She then told me a long story. She said she once had a childhood fiancé, an incredible man. So exceptional, in fact, that it made her wonder why such a perfect person had always been so devoted to her. That man protected her as she grew up. Before she turned 20, she lived like a sheltered, innocent girl. But before they could marry, he was in a car accident and ended up in a coma. Selena took a sip of wine. You've heard of the Kong family, right? I nodded. The Kong family had once been among the elite, but recently, a wave of scandals had surfaced. The entire household collapsed. Now in bankruptcy and legal trouble, several major members had already been sentenced. Selena said calmly, that was me. She explained she had married into Luis's family to gain power, so she could take the Kong family down. Because she had discovered the accident wasn't an accident. It was the Kong family's doing. So that once innocent girl forced herself to become powerful and ruthless. Now that her mission was complete, she was going back to him. Selena looked at me. Luis and I, nothing ever happened. If you still have feelings for him. I raised an eyebrow. No thanks. Selena clinked glasses with me. Smiling. Thought so. Chapter 18. Before Selena left. I asked, has your fiancé woken up? Selena smiled and raised her phone slightly. I never turn it off or put it on silent, because I'm afraid I'll miss the call when he wakes up. I lifted my glass toward her in a distant toast. He'll wake up. Selena turned and walked away, dressed in a flowing white dress, head held high, like a blooming calla lily. Suddenly, I remembered the meaning of calla lilies. An unwavering love, until death. News of Selena and Luis's divorce made waves. But unexpectedly, I became the biggest winner. That grand century wedding was dug up by curious netizens. They cited how such a lavish ceremony had only lasted not even 3 years. What followed was a flood of new inquiries and bookings. I became so busy my feet barely touched the ground. Nicole was both thrilled and exasperated, muttering non-stop. The money, it just won't stop coming. Chapter 19. Just as I hit peak busyness, Luis, clearly provoked by Ethan, suddenly started pursuing me publicly and aggressively. Though his family was no longer as rich as before, even a dying camel is bigger than a horse. Luis sent flowers, bags, cars. He showed up outside my office every single day. Plenty of people started betting on what Luis would send today, but all I could think of was how annoying it was to be interrupted when I was swamped. So one evening, I finally lost patience and went downstairs to see him. Luis's eyes lit up when he saw me. Julia, I've finally taken care of everything. We can be together forever. I held out my hand. What are you giving today? Luis was stunned by my uncharacteristic tone. He thought he'd finally moved me. He handed me a jewelry box, which contained a diamond-encrusted designer bracelet. He reached out, trying to help me put it on, intentionally revealing the worn-out rainbow bracelet still on his wrist. I pulled my hand back. The jewelry box slipped through my fingers and fell to the ground with a sharp clack. Luis bent down, picked it up, and gently brushed the dust off, his expression slightly aggrieved. Still mad at me? I answered calmly. No more carrots this time? After all, cars and bags were never the carrot tied in front of the donkey, were they? Luis's pupils shrank sharply. The memory hit him like a wave. 3 years ago, Luis had whispered in his own ear, it's like leading a donkey, right? You need a clear carrot dangling in front. Cars and bags can't prove you want to marry her, but paying in full for a house? That's the carrot. For the first time, panic flickered across Luis's face. Until now, he had always assumed I was just upset that he chose someone else. He stammered, flustered. That's not what it was. I can explain. In our circle, if you're sincere about a woman, they mock you for it. So I just pretended I didn't care. I raised my hand, stopping his rambling excuses. None of that matters now, Luis. I don't love you anymore. From the moment you said I only slept with you because you paid for the house in full, we were done. Do you even remember? Our first time wasn't even after you bought the house. It happened during the renovation. We were running around to different furniture stores. One weekend, it was scorching hot. We went to 3 stores before finally finding the perfect tiles. Even I was completely exhausted. I snapped at Luis. He was just as tired, maybe even more, but didn't get mad. Instead, he quickened his pace, crouched down in front of me, turned around with a smile and asked, "Want a piggyback ride?" The blazing sunlight filtered through the trees, casting golden flecks over him. A breeze seemed to stir through my heart. In that moment, I thought, he's the one. But time changed everything. The man standing in front of me now, worn down and hollow-eyed, started to overlap with the warm, smiling boy he once was. Luis's fingers trembled slightly. He finally realized I wasn't coming back. Holding back tears, he looked up at me. I wish you all the best. I felt a faint twinge of disappointment. What I really wanted to hear was a simple "I'm sorry." I pointed at his wrist. That rainbow bracelet. Throw it away. Luis touched his wrist silently and turned to leave, his steps unsteady. Just as he reached the middle of the road, the rainbow bracelet suddenly came loose without warning. Instinctively, Luis looked down. A pair of blinding headlights hit him dead on. A screech of brakes tore through the night. With a loud bang, Luis flew like a broken kite. crashing hard onto the pavement. Chapter 20. Luis didn't die, but he lost a leg. He no longer hung out with his party friends. Instead, he poured himself into work. The whole man looked like he'd aged 10 years. His parents tried several times to set him up with someone new, but he just brushed them off with maybe later. City A isn't that big, but it isn't exactly small either, thanks to my deliberate avoidance. Luis and I never saw each other again. Still, Selena told me, during holidays, Luis would send her greetings and casually ask about me. I smiled helplessly and locked my phone. A warm scent of soap approached from behind as someone pulled me into an embrace. "Hey, do you have a boyfriend?" I answered, expression calm and completely shameless. "A few." "Why?" Ethan was halfway into whatever line he was working on, but gave up in frustration. "This isn't fair. I don't want to be just your bed buddy. I want a real title." After a long silence, I said, "I'm leaving tomorrow. A new client's been urging me." Ethan tightened his arms around mine. His voice was a little hoarse. "If one day you want to settle down, could you turn around and look for me?" I stood up and left. "Maybe, but not now. What I want is the wind. Free and unbound. The sea, vast and endless. I want to see the prairies where it rains. The sky, filled with stars. I'm not ready to stop, and I won't stop for anyone." Extra chapter. I returned to City A once more, because Selena's fiancé had finally woken up. She practically blew up my phone with calls until I gave in and came back. I brought a bouquet of calla lilies to visit the patient. Ethan waited for me downstairs. Outside the hospital room, Selena pulled me aside nervously. "I haven't told him I was married once. Do you think he'll mind?" In that moment, Selena looked just like a little girl who'd done something wrong. Gone was the elegant heiress I once knew. I couldn't help but laugh. Of course he'll mind that he took so long to wake up and made his precious fiancé suffer so much. Selena put her hands on her hips, fuming. "I tell you my secrets and you just mock me." At some point, Nicole had wandered over too. Together, we shoved Selena toward the hospital room. "Go on." Honest confession for leniency. Denial leads to doom. Selena finally took a deep breath and stepped inside. I have something to tell you." Nicole and I shamelessly pressed our ears to the door. Inside, Selena kept her head down as she spoke, non-stop, as if afraid that even a second's pause would shatter her courage. When she finally finished, the room fell silent. Then, a raspy male voice broke the quiet. "My Selena, you must have suffered so much all these years." Before he could finish, the frail man on the bed buried his face in his hands and wept silently. Selena's eyes turned red, and she curled into his arms. The two of them clung to each other, unwilling to let go. Outside the room, I gently closed the door. After all the years, after all the chaos and heartache, we could finally look back at the road we walked and say lightly, with a smile, "It was just a bit of wind and frost."